I'll never find them abroad. I got love for this place, it's got a piece of my heart. Lights on, everything becomes magical. Then you got the other side with trash acts and rats, of course. Second nation in hip-hop and it's the capital. If you can't understand, it's just cause love is not rational. And maybe you don't wanna visit, but every year 30 million people think different. I know you know about the fashion, how the food is delicious, but my plan and mission is to show the bigger picture. Cause wishes and pity sometimes is all you got. It ain't always pretty, we're putting things in a box. We really don't wanna dramatize, cause if my mother hadn't fell in love with the city, she wouldn't have fell in love with my pops. I love New York, but I represent Paris. My family out of Texas, but I represent Paris. They need you stand up, still I represent Paris. I'm talking to the world, but I represent Paris. I love New York, but I represent Paris. Got family out of Texas, but I represent Paris. They need you stand up, still I represent Paris. I'm talking to the world, but I represent Paris. My city's not my president, and fuck who told you so. My city's multicultural, and it's a fact. Some will work twice as much and never get what they hoping for. But where I grew up, skin color didn't make us unapproachable. We might have joked about each other's parents or made fun of what the other dude was wearing, but trust me, you have a whole different outlook on this planet. Growing up amongst whites, blacks and Arabs, Muslims and Christians, seeing that it doesn't have to be the cause of some friction. Hands down the best city in the world to live in, but there's still so many living in appalling conditions. And that's what they don't let the tourists see. This world's a movie and no one wants to play the shortest scene. Kids stuck dreaming of money or power. A lot of people I know have never gone up the Eiffel Tower. But I represent Paris. My family out of Texas, but I represent Paris. They need you stand up, still I represent Paris. I'm talking to the world, but I represent Paris. I love New York, but I represent Paris. Got family out of Texas, but I represent Paris. They need you stand up, still I represent Paris. I'm talking to the world, but I represent Paris. Can't afford to move, but I probably wouldn't even if I could. Cause not too many cities hold memories of my childhood. And from the big city to the wild hoods, when I say Paris, I'm not talking about the one in the guidebook. I'm talking 91, 92, 93, 95, 94, 77, 78, and 75. From where a lot of things are too expensive to buy, to where you basically just live to survive. From where lights shine brighter than the stars, to where you still got break dances and graffitis on the walls. From gorgeous monuments and famous boulevards, to where we'll call you bitch just because you got a yard. We killed the king in 93, so you don't wanna claim the crown. Far from being the only rapper coming from this town, but I'ma ride or die for it and I'ma try to make you proud. I love New York, but I represent Paris. My family out of Texas, but I represent